We need to set up the stream right. Okay.
So this is live? Because I was
Yeah.
going to say, would really need to put in a portion of his phone call, but I don't know if you don't have time to do that now. But that phone call, it's on my Facebook page.
Oh, we'll do it later. Maybe add it on. Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas to everyone, and welcome to BraveHearts. This is Sean Lin, and this is Christmas Eve. Definitely, we need to talk about Christmas, and so I'm invited special guest, my good friend Rose Tennent, to join the show. She's a champion in a conservative political ratio, and she hosts this syndicated radio show called Rose Unplugged, and she has been the host for more than 20 years now. I'm so delighted to invite her to join today's show. Rose, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sean. It's good to see you, and I really enjoy our new friendship. It's been very nice to get to know you.
Thank you. So, Rose, I know recently you organizing and co-host this important rally happened in DC on December 13th, and it's called Keep Christmas Rally. And so I see on that day so many people come together, so many moms from America, right? This organization that brings so many people come together and pray, and also hope the U.S. can keep this tradition, keep Christmas, and we can keep saying Merry Christmas. So can you tell us and why you're involved and also the significance of this event, what it means to you?
Well, I think we wanted to stand up and say, you will not tell us, how we can worship, whether or not we can gather together for the holidays. I mean, for a Christian, Christmas is a very important holiday. I mean, we view it as the birth of our Savior. And if there's ever a time we need one, it's right now. But having so many governors in so many blue states tell us that we can't congregate, that we had to limit the number of people that could come together, that you can't sing in many of the churches, it was really something that concerned us. And I'll tell you, Sean, one of the things that really concerns me right now is the fact that it looks as though we're on the verge of socialism. We have been hearing so many things from the left about socialism. Bernie Sanders, AOC. It seems that the left has embraced this, where in the past, the word socialism has been shunned by so many. Even those who loved socialism, they didn't really want to be labeled as such. So when you think of socialism, and I know you know this, it's a suppression of some of our natural powers. Some of the natural powers that we possess as free people are the power, economic power, social power, and our freedom. And I think that what happens is that once they start doing that, once they start taking away those freedoms of religion, social gatherings, and also our economic prowess, that's when you start to see the deterioration of a country, and that's when socialism can slide right in. And when you think about it, that's exactly what these blue governors are doing right now. They are suppressing our social activity, our economic activity, and our religious activity. And I just see that as a huge threat. Going forward, we can't function as a strong nation if they've taken away those natural defenses that we have against socialism.
Yes, and especially this Christmas, right? So many blue states actually have restriction orders, and maybe even family gathering, you have a size limit, and people are worried and maybe feel like in the future they will be locked down in the home more. And so this tradition also may be being interfered in this way. And so even for people in this blue state, what can they do in order to keep the tradition, even though they have the governor give you this order? How can people keep this tradition in their heart?
Well, and we can keep it in our heart. And you're absolutely right. No one can take that away from us. But as long as we have breath, so many of us have decided that we would reject what the governors have mandated. And it was really heartening to see. And I think I'm going to gain weight this season because I have been to every restaurant that has defied the governor's orders here in Pennsylvania. And I've had lunch or dinner there, breakfast there, trying to support those businesses that decided to stay open regardless of what the governor has mandated. And, I talked to some of the restaurant owners, for example. This is their busiest time of year. This is when they money. This is when people have Christmas parties, go out for dinner. And one of the guys that kept his restaurant open told me that the reason he did it, and he's willing to face the fines and whatever else comes, the reason he did it was for those women that worked for him that were single moms and wanted to have a good Christmas for their children. I mean, this is just, it's insane that we actually have, I just support them. I think they're courageous, and I applaud them for defying the orders and staying open. I never thought I'd say that, but that is exactly how I feel right now.
And talk about rejecting the government orders. I remember I talked to Mr. Brian Gibson from Kentucky. He's leading a movement for churches to defy governor's orders, open the church, even though the government said maybe casinos business more important than churches. So do you see similar situations in Pennsylvania? Like more churches want to keep open instead of being locked down?
There are many churches that have decided to stay open, and I think they're rejecting there's a minimum number of congressional. There's a minimal number of congregates that can come to church, but I think some churches have said, the heck with all of that. We still want to celebrate, particularly this time of year. So I think, what I think is really interesting, Sean, because somehow we're on this subject of socialism, and I think it's essential that we do talk about this. One of the things I find interesting is that of all the businesses out there, you have the Targets and the Lowe's, and God bless them. I love shopping, all of those places. I just like shopping. But the restaurants have been attacked. And when you stop to think about it, the restaurant industry is one of the largest industries in this country. It employs a huge number of people in this country. And guess what? Mostly middle class. And don't we know with socialism that the key to socialism, the key for it to work, is to destroy the middle class, to dissolve that middle class, because there's strength in that middle class. There's innovation in that middle class. And the ruling elite can't have that. They can't have that innovation. They can't have what some of these restaurant owners are doing by defying, the governor's orders. So there's a strength that comes out of the middle class. There is a resolve, an innovation that comes out of middle class. And that is precisely what they want to destroy. And by doing what they're doing to restaurants, they're starting with one of the biggest industries in this country. And they are the industry that supports the middle class. They hire people, their salaries fall right within that category. I mean, it's just really shameful to watch, but that's exactly what's happening right now.
So, I mean, in New York, you talk about restaurant industry. In New York, I've been seeing so many restaurants, even like in Koreatown, just been to recently, they have to open up those outdoor tent and bring the customers sitting in the tent. But people still similar distance. I just really feel like so bizarre, the order, and people have to do that. And what an extra financial burden for these restaurant owners. Right?
And many of them opened up outside, and now they're being told they can't even serve people outside. And I don't even know what the difference is between how close you're sitting to someone outside and how close you're sitting to them indoors. I think that people need to be able to assess their own risk. Grown-ups be able to do that. But see, the government doesn't want, the more power the government takes, the less power we have as American people. And listen, we are to be free. We were meant to be free. John Adams said, "You'll never know the sacrifices that my generation made for yours. Make good use of it." And that's why you see these people defying it. They're trying to make good use of it.
Yeah. So since you're talking about founding fathers, so in their views, do you think they already foresee the problem that American people facing nowadays?
I think that that's why we have the Constitution, to protect us from the problems that we're seeing nowadays. Really, that Constitution is our protection. That Constitution is a promise for our freedom. But even, Benjamin Franklin, when he was leaving on that last day of deliberation, and he was asked by a very powerful woman, by the way, in the community, who was very involved politically, asked him, "What have we got, a monarchy or a republic?" And he said, "A republic, if you can keep it." So he even had concerns 240, or how many years later was that? 233 years later, or before 230. Yeah, he had the same concerns. Can you keep it? He knew it would be difficult, but he knew we could, and look how long we did.
Yes, especially, for religious freedom, right? America was established because people come to America for the freedom to have their own religions. But nowadays, if churches activities cannot be held regularly just because of the governor's orders. So, do you think even more evangelical groups need to voice out their concern and to the congressional leader? Because we talk about the power, like we the people, right? Do you think not just to the congressional leader, they need to also appeal to more religious leader as well?
I just hope that religious leaders will stand strong. You know, there's like a division there, just like there is in the country. You know, half the religious leaders think that we need to just kowtow to the governors and to government, and then the other half say, no, we must fight. You know, during the Revolutionary War days, leading up to them, pastors would be giving these fabulous sermons in the church, and they were talking about freedom and how it had everything to do with God, and that we were fighting, you know, the great whore of Babylon, which was, you know, the tyrannical monarchy, you know, government that they fled. And they would then, when they were done with these fabulous sermons, they would rip open their robes and you would see the uniform on underneath. You know, I got to say, one of the things that I think scared the left and that helped the left resolve to fight Donald Trump tooth and nail is that he has always been against socialism, as recent as 2019 at a State of the Union address, when he said, we will never be a socialist country. And, you know, the left hates that. The left absolutely hates that. And because of that, because he understood that, they decided he had to go. And everything they have done so far, from the time he was elected president until even now, has been to get this man out of there, because he understands that he was standing in the gap for us. We have to socialism. We have to remain a free country. And people just don't understand that. They really just don't get how important that is.
And since you talk about socialism, so for those people who believe in socialism, in their view, in their eyes, what kind of person a conservative people is?
Well, let me tell you something. So the other day I was guest hosting for Sean Hannity, and we got a phone call from someone in Minneapolis. His name was David. And I actually think I know who it is. And it is a real call. I did a little research, but he really pulled the curtain away and let all of us see and hear what socialists really think about all of that. There is a contempt for those of us who love freedom. There's a contempt for those of us who are fighting socialism. He promised a massive global reset, and we've heard this before. We have. And he talked too about how he promised utter destruction of everything that we hold dear. That's what he said to me on the phone.
You mean physical destruction?
Utter destruction. So utter destruction of our process, of our structure, maybe even the Constitution. And he said, look, we have the media, we have the courts, and we have the machines. And you know what? He's right. They do. They have all of that. All of that. So, I mean, if you get a chance, those of you watching right now, my Facebook, I have it on Facebook. It's Rose Unplugged. But if you go there, it's also on my Twitter page, @Rose_Unplugged. And you can hear the entire conversation. And it was interesting, Sean, because he was so calm and he was so confident in what he was saying. And look, he's not telling us anything new. It's just that we've never heard anybody really verbalize it to that degree, you know, and be so honest about it and upfront about what they think about socialism and what they think about those of us who value our freedoms in this country.
So what kind of person you guess he is? Is he speak like elite, very educated people, or?
He sounds very smart to me. I think that I talked to him about the ruling elite, and he didn't seem to care very much about that, and the haves and have-nots. It's interesting. You got to hear it. It was just an amazing phone call. I've never, and it was almost eerie a little bit, you know, to hear someone say the things that he did with such confidence and almost. So it was a very interesting call. But listen, there are a lot of people in this country, and there are people all over the world that would love to see a one global government, and, you know, have us all come in, you know. And he talked about a global reset, and I think that we've already heard things like that in the not too distant past. So I mean, this is not something that's new. This is something that people have been talking about for a long time. I was just surprised that they're talking about it so openly and freely right now.
Yes, and I actually heard about this term, the Great Reset, from the letter Archbishop Vigaro wrote to our president. Right? Yeah, and I believe that the communists have been working on this. They call it the long march in the system in order to change America. This is for decades. But the global reset agenda, do you believe it also have been implemented for decades too?
that this is something that's been worked on, strategized, discussed for a very long time. And I think that we're actually in a position right now in this country, as we've lost so many freedoms and we see how many people are willing to give up those freedoms for a little bit of safety or out of fear. Because you know that if you can make a people fearful, you can control them.
Yeah.
And I think you know that too. I think you know that.
It's a very powerful way to control people, give you fear. And many people live in the communist regime, they have this fear deep inside for a long, long time. Even in China in the past, people were scared even to criticize communism in any public occasions. People didn't even realize. It's just like it's so embedded in your blood when they be ruled for decades.
Yeah, and and that's what that caller said to me. We have the machines. I guess he's talking about the voting machines, the election machines. And he said we have the courts and we have the media, and they do have the media. I have never seen censorship like I've seen this time around. These last couple of months, even. I remember when there were stories about how our big tech companies were protecting China and protecting the government of China by censoring some of the things or preventing the Chinese people from seeing things through the internet. So now here we have almost the same thing happening in our country. It's astounding. It's unheard of. And yet that's exactly what's happening. The president can't tweet anything without there being a disclaimer at the bottom of it or a challenge that what he's saying is incorrect. It's just, I in timeout because I simply tweeted something about how it was mathematically impossible for Biden to have supposedly won the way he won, and I went into a timeout on Twitter. So we are being censored. We never thought anything would happen like this in our country, and yet here we are. Here we are.
Yeah, I think American people start to taste what it feels like without freedom of expression. So actually, one concern, since you mentioned about the governments or the lab taking advantage of the COVID situation, right, limit people's activities or mobilities. And do you concern them, even on January 6th or even before that, some of the governors or even DC mayor can put out some restrictions in DC, so even President Trump calling more people together on January 6th to voice out their concern to the congressional leaders, but maybe they were blocked, they could not gather into DC.
Well, they might try, and we did hear rumor of that the last time we all got together in D.C., which was about a week or so ago. But you know what? If I know the American people and they have, and the conservatives are fed up with this, and I don't know that they're going to pay any attention to something like that. I think they'll show up no matter what President asks them to, and they plan to be there. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to show up. Let's see what happens.
So people's power started showing up in this process. And I know Pennsylvania is also a battleground, right? Can you give us a little update in terms of legal battles in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, there's a couple right now. The Pennsylvania Brokeback case, they were supposed to hear 2 days after the inauguration, which is, nullifying any useful constitutional challenge that we possibly could have had with that case. Then there is another Pennsylvania case. It's the one with Congressman Kelly. And that was ignored by SCOTUS. It was just, they disregarded the motion to expedite. So, I think there's a lot of frustration right now, a lot of disappointment, particularly in Justice Roberts. They that he should have recused himself. They feel based on an attitude that he's expressed. So, this is very disappointing, particularly in Pennsylvania. And, Sean, the thing that really gets me the most here in Pennsylvania, the thing that's so disappointing is that, honestly, freedom was born here. And see, this, this challenge in the courts, this is not about Donald Trump. It's not about one election, one candidate. This is about all future elections, because if they are allowed to get away with this level of fraud, which is unheard of, we've never seen anything like this before. If they get away with this, then 2016 was the last free election this country will ever have. That's it. What makes me sad as someone who lived in Pennsylvania, grew up here, I have to tell you, freedom was born here. It was here 244 years ago that our founding fathers decided to risk everything and declare independence from a tyrannical ruler. It was here 11 years later that some of those same men got together and crafted one of the most amazing documents of all time, our Constitution, which promised us those liberties. It was here where battles were fought for freedom. And I hate to think that where freedom was born is where freedom may die, because Pennsylvania was a huge, huge state that had many, many problems with fraudulent ballots. And it may actually die in the same place it was born, freedom.
Yeah, it's truly saddening if it really happened, in this way. And since you mentioned about the justice in Scotus, do you think because people put too much hope on them, because after all, 9 justices, they are just 9 human beings, they can be easily, influenced or intimidated or threatened by different power and forces?
Well, certainly any human being can be, but when we appoint certain justices, we do so believing that they have confirmed to us and promised us that they would judge based on our Constitution, that they would put aside any personal feelings, any personal convictions that they have, and be committed only to the Constitution. And I don't know. I don't like what I'm seeing. I think a lot of people are very disappointed right now.
So do you have a lot of hope on January 6th? Maybe more people from Pennsylvania will come to D.C. and urge their congressional leaders?
They certainly will. We do have a lot of congressional leaders that will come out and say hello to the people before they go in. I mean, they are going to show up. What that means is, I don't know, they're there to support the president. And, since it's Christmas Eve and we think a lot about, just all those things that, because really we believe that our freedoms come from God. We were created in his image. Our founding fathers were influenced greatly by Christianity, by God, Judeo-Christian values. So this is a real challenge. I mean, this is the very core of who we all are. And I was thinking, this is Christmas Eve, and I remember Churchill, I think it was 1941. He was in Washington, D.C., and he had he gave a Christmas Eve address to the people of the world, quite frankly, because it was at a time where everybody was thinking about freedom and they were concerned about freedom and losing their freedoms. And he talked about how we should let the children have their night of fun and laughter, and how the adults should engage in that with the children, because they will soon turn again to the stern task and the formidable years that lie before them. And in many ways, I feel like that's where we are right now, that we've got formidable years ahead of us because of this battle for freedom right now, because of the battle for the Republic. So for everyone, we must engage with the children. We must enjoy this holiday, because we will quickly have to turn again to that task that lies before us. And he said that we should be resolved, and I think this is a message for us today, that we should resolve that our sacrifice and daring, and our founding fathers' sacrifice and daring, should not be forgotten, so that these same children that are enjoying Christmas tonight and tomorrow will not be robbed of their inheritance. And that is their right to live as free human beings. So Churchill had a great sentiment, and I think it applies to us this year.
And do you actually worry that our country will actually on the speed track to the socialism, if President Trump cannot win these elections eventually? And because we see a lot of the potential cabinet members, they are very pro-China, very pro-communism, so very far-left ideologies. So do you worry about that?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. And yeah, after Christmas, we've got a task ahead of us. We have to continue to fight for the Republic. But I don't know what form that takes. If it's social media, if it's getting out there and doing whatever, living in your gift and getting out there and being verbal and fighting for the Republic. That's so important right now. Not for us. It's not. We don't do this for us. We do it for future generations, just like it was done for us.
Wow, great. Thank you very much, Rose. And I think hope everyone will get your message, and we'll definitely put your Facebook link on our YouTube channel's description. Hope everyone can get a chance to listen to that person's blatant statement, right, regarding about Great Reset.
Socialism, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. Merry Christmas to all of you.
And Merry Christmas. Thank you very much, Rose, and enjoy your holidays.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. All right, everyone. This is all for today's program, and hope everyone enjoy a Christmas and at the same time pray more and also think about how we as all human beings can return to the traditional past that God has given to us. All right, thank you for watching today's program. This